Welcome back, everyone, to Unraveling Crypto. Today's episode with Albert, who is the CEO of Web3 Startup Lab on Stacks, was filled with insights, takeaways, and wisdom on how to overcome challenges and adversity, especially when you are a founder or you want to start a new project or you have an idea that you want to develop. And the parallels between self-growth and self-improvement and getting started on any project or in the startup world was really illuminating. Let's dive right on in. Hi, Albert. Welcome to Unraveling Crypto. I'm so excited to have you on today.
Thank you, Vinay, for having me. I'm excited too.
Yeah. So, let's get started. Well, before we go into a little bit of context of how we know and got connected, what are you most grateful for right now?
Oh, wow. What am I most grateful for right now? I think I'm grateful for all the students that went through the cohort 1, all the mentors that contributed, the Stacks Foundation, and also the previous cohorts that we ran as well that helped me and my team get to where we are today. So yeah, in general, grateful for all the relationships that came into play to help us. Yeah.
Okay, so for context for everyone, Albert is the founder of the pre-accelerator in Stacks. So it's like the Web3 Startup Lab. And I was part of the first cohort that ran this summer along with Melanie. And it was so insightful. Honestly, I think the teachings and the learnings from that was quite powerful. Learning a lot about pivoting and maybe we have an idea, but it's not necessarily going to be developed right now. So we need to reiterate and think about it. And instead of just wasting resources or kind of going for it with an idea that we have. So that was quite powerful. There's many more teachings and I want to share a little bit of what I learned throughout, but I want to, before we get started, again, what's your superpower? So this is a question I always ask guests, that one thing that comes most natural to you that you've done probably since you were a little kid.
I don't know if it's a superpower, but I see that I tend to jump into things after only probably understanding 10%, and I'll figure out the rest in progress. So maybe that's part ignorance, but it's probably also part bravery. I don't know which one it is. There's a fine line between. But so I think that has given me a big edge in everything I do. The other thing I think that maybe that comes more naturally to me is connecting people. Right? It's connecting people. And very, very closely linked to that superpower is that I think I have a gift for seeing the beauty or talent in people. So I tend to know who I should match people up with, right? And then 1 + 1 becomes maybe 3 or maybe 11 or more, right? So maybe that's probably helping people become the best versions of themselves. Maybe is my superpower. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that superpower. Okay, so Albert, could you share with us a little bit of your background and what you do and what led you into the Web3 rabbit hole?
Yeah, that's a great question. The long story short is I know Trevor Owens. We were friends from a long time ago. And before we started the startup lab, the Web3 Startup Lab, about 8.5 years ago now, almost 9 years ago, I had a small consultancy that helped people turn their ideas into startups. And then they could try to go to accelerator. So this is like basically no-fly zone for accelerators and investors. And my consultancy would help them bridge that gap. And then Trevor one day took a look at my business model. He says, you know what? Why don't you just turn into a pre-accelerator and just do groups of people at a time, bring in mentors, et cetera, right? And then so between then and now, we became the longest running pre-accelerator, not just in Shanghai, but in all of China at 21 cohorts. And our 22nd cohort was the all Web3 on Stacks Startup Lab. Yeah, so that first cohort on Stacks was actually our 22nd cohort. So that's in a nutshell how we got here. Yeah.
Yeah. And what was what was that one thing that kind of made you say yes to crypto? Like going from what was it other than, of course, Trevor, who I can see is very convincing.
Honestly, I was very resistant to it for a long time. Like Trevor had talked to me about it many, many years ago. And of course, a lot of friends have said, you got to get into this. You got to get into this. But before the vision of the pre-accelerator was to keep things agnostic. We had about 50-50 female male ratio, and we had online, offline, Web3, Web2, like traditional business, startup business. It's just agnostic, right? And we wanted to create a very diverse environment for founders to cross-pollinate and thrive and create better stuff. And what actually happened was like a series of things. One is, as probably some of you know, the climate, the policies in China have become very strict on crypto. Okay, and in this aspect, has almost halted all innovation. So as an innovator, I felt that I had to go to a better environment that's more conducive or more supportive of innovation. And about the same time, Trevor reached out last year. He said, Albert, we just finished our first cohort, and we have this huge overflow of applicants that we couldn't even take. You have to do the pre-accelerator, and I'll do the accelerator, and this is going to be the perfect combination, right? So, like you said, Trevor was very convincing, and I just took the plunge. I mean, it took me a few months to really get around to it, but in the end, I made the full, all-in jump in March of this year.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's like a quite powerful story, just because like I think most people, or the early adopters too, like there's been some resistance, and then they go in, and I think that's really that's relatable to people currently right now. There's friction or resistance, and when they hear other people say that, oh, they've been through that, okay, I'm not the only one here who may find something sticky before going in. I mean, and especially because you pivoted your business.
Yeah, it's having like a good friend there first, because it is sort of like it's hard to wrap your head around like crypto. What does that mean? Bitcoin, how is this like digital currency worth so much money, right? and because it's not something that is in our everyday lives. It's there in the ether, in that virtual space. There's a general for me, it was like a distrust towards it, right? But because there's a friend there, then he's there and he's doing all right. So let me try also, right? So it didn't really answer, I don't think anyone really knows 100% about crypto before they get in. It's usually they have a chaperone, right, to bring them into the fold. Yeah.
That's so true. 100% with that. So just so everybody knows a little bit, Trevor is a managing partner at Stacks Ventures in the Stacks ecosystem, and he runs, along with other really incredible humans, the Stacks Accelerator. So just for people to get a little bit of context. Okay, so what would you say? I think when I think about you and having so many groups and teams come through you and seeing many ideas, like how do you define success in any type of field, or even for yourself, but also like as you're helping founders get started?
That's a really good question. I'd like to sort of reverse engineer that question. Maybe start with my definition. There's maybe a million or infinite definitions of success, but if we're talking about maybe, because I think a startup it shouldn't be someone's like entire life. It should be like an intersection between your life and work, right? And I think success is defined by three factors. One, I think the most important is to have friends and people you care about to enjoy that success with you, right? I think that's the most important, right? And then the second is creating something that is super useful to people in society, And as a byproduct, you make a ton of money from that. Right. So those are three things. Right. So the first one was the most important. Enjoy it with a group of friends that you care about, family, friends, people that you meet on like when you're on your journey to success. Two, create something super useful for people. And as a byproduct, number three, you make a ton of money. So if we backtrack that to I guess the startup world, and if you keep backtracking that, reverse engineer down to like the idea stage, which is where the startup lab starts, is with people with ideas, right? So we help you build all three of those. And actually, I think the most important thing is to learn in a peer-to-peer environment, because you want to have those peers to enjoy your success along with your family and friends, right? When you do make a ton of money because you create something super useful for society. And the second thing, create something super useful. And you're a super good student, and because you sort of, in the beginning you summarize very well, like the key point or the spirit of what we're trying to do, and that is, it's not, it's about pivoting, but on a more fundamental level, when we pivot, what are we doing? We're actually changing our thought pattern. We're creating a new habit, right? So I believe innovation, or success in any industry, is more about self-efficacy, or if we use more plain terms, the ability for us to change our habits. Are we able to change our habits? Right? Because if we want to go somewhere we've never been before, we better believe that we have to develop new habits, new skills to get there. Right. And so it doesn't matter like what industry we're in, or if you're a founder or doing whatever, if we want to reach the top, one thing is for sure, no matter what we do, there's going to be obstacles every step of the way. Right. So the idea is like, once you solve this problem, you will go up one level, but then what's waiting for you at the next level? Another problem. And a lot of times those problems are completely out of our imagination or out of our current knowledge, right? So what we're forced to do is wow, there's a new problem. I got to learn something real quick, and I got to change my habit to adapt to solve this problem, right? But it's only good enough for that step, because once we go up another step, we're encountering the same thing, right? So it's really about how rapidly we can develop new habits. And that's what the Startup Lab is geared to do, to help people do that. Yeah.
I think, wow, you summarized this so beautifully. And there's so many different questions. But I guess the first one with this is like, how do you, what's the mental attitude for someone that can overcome those challenges rather than being kind of defeated by them? Because I think often when we're starting an idea, like you said, whether it is a business or something else, we meet all these challenges and obstacles and we feel so defeated. Like, what's the different attitudes or the mental shift you have to have?
Well, I think like you have those skills, right? In the beginning, you could see who has the grit to move forward. Right? Because the beginning is about research, right? And what happens is like we'll research and we'll become aware of some things, and we'll find out, well, oh, that wasn't that great of an idea, right? And that's sort of like a punch in the stomach, and you're like, of course, like you spent energy on it, so of course there's some disappointment there, right? But then some people they get stuck in the disappointment and they shut down, right? While others, I'm disappointed, but okay, take a little rest. Tomorrow, let's start again and do it again, right? And we don't really know where it's going to take us, but so there's also like this a little like I don't know if it's called self-confidence or faith in oneself, right? I don't look, make a mistake, fall, get back up, and do it again. So in the beginning, that takes some grit, but also takes I don't know really how to explain it, but maybe the best way is like innate self-confidence or trained self-confidence, to the point where I have the faith that if I do this enough times, I'll eventually figure it out, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think something that happens even to me when I went through it, and I saw it in other peers, that you have this idea and you kind of are attached to it, and when you come up with the research that you find it's new findings, meaning that you can't stick to that. It's so hard to let go of that idea because you've put so much time and effort, and also like this like expectation of what you thought it needed to be. Like, what's your advice for anybody that's kind of facing that right now?
Oh, wow. The I think if people get stuck in that pitfall, sometimes it's because we are thinking too much, right? Like maybe trying to project what's supposed to happen, or getting stuck with another type of thinking. So instead of filling our minds with that clutter, do they, people could do themselves a favor by, okay, just forget about everything. Let me just do one thing right now and remove myself from the equation. Right? Let me just take this and just, I'm just exploring. No expectations, and focus on one user, one customer, and just listen actively to what they're saying. Forget about what we're thinking for a second, right? And it seems like a really simple thing to do, and almost seems like, how can that be effective? But the paradox there is, the more people try to speed up and try to skip ahead, the slower they become. And the more focused we become in the present with the current task, that actually is the fastest we could go, right? Because when we focus on the current task, we'll eventually get it right. So at least we have one stepping stone done, right? Whereas somebody could be trying to skip ahead for months and months and months, and they never figure out first base. They never create the first cornerstone. And after months, they can still be spinning the wheels, be in the same place. So it's really about just dropping all the white noise and just focusing on the first thing, which is the user. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I think I don't know why. I mean, I've been in the coaching space and in the wellness space as well. And I think that what you share here is very similar to like self-development, self-growth. I think it goes hand in hand with like building a business and the grit you have to kind of like build. Like it's like one and the other are kind of like the same, or interchangeable in a sense, or interconnected.
It completely is interchangeable, because this is actually just a subset of self-growth. It's just self-growth within the business or startup. Actually, it's even like a smaller subset. Like this is self-growth is really big. And then you have business self-growth, and then you have startup self-growth, right? So yeah, no, I mean, we can never achieve more than we know. So it's really about reinventing ourselves, getting new knowledge, right? Building new habits along the way. So our perception of what is, like you were saying, like, when we meet a roadblock, we don't want to put it down because we're so invested in it. But at the same time, it's such an enlightening experience, because now we're recalibrating our intuition to something that is closer to reality. And and then that process is so important, because as a startup founder, we have to make the right decisions, right? So without going through the pain, we'll never be able to make quick decisions. Right? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I love everything. So, what would you say as a founder or someone that is starting out, like what's the right balance between like intuition and just, I guess, the practicality of this is not working and it's just not going to move forward, versus like trusting that intuition piece?
Oh, I would say in the beginning, I'll be very careful about trusting my own intuition, because our intuition is geared to the experiences in our life. So my first 3 businesses, I did major face plants and wasted literally millions of dollars and years of my time. And it was just painful. And now, hindsight being 2020, what happened was I try to use my intuition and my mindset that I developed before I started up, right? And so where does our mindset come from? It comes from, for example, schooling. Right, this in school, it's all about, all right, who could get the highest grade and get the the A, the SAT, right? Like who could get the highest grade and get into the best college, right? Or when we see commercials or movies, all the products that we see have gone through a lot of experimentation, a lot of like iterations until it's like almost perfect, right? And so in our minds, we think that's what a product should look like from day one, right? But they don't show us everything that happened before that, right? And so we're like bombarded with these I would say like mental frameworks that are effective when you're living your life day to day, but as soon as we go into a startup setting, is no longer effective. It's actually almost the complete opposite, right? Things are messy, things are ugly, things are not like so structured, right? It's and that's that that's the challenge that every single founder has to go up against, to see if they can break out of that mold and recreate a new mental structure.
I think what you said is really powerful, because the majority of us kind of go into it, like I said, having this idea and then trying to trust this intuition. But I feel like sometimes we don't know truly how to discern the intuition versus like this really big desire or even fear. So just kind of dropping that and creating a new mental model going in is perhaps your best bet in developing it as you go.
That was a great summary. And you've gone through the process. So actually the Startup Lab is, how do we recreate our mental framework by doing small actions, right? By doing one interview at a time, doing it scientifically, repeating the process and adapting to it each time. And slowly but surely, our mental model is changing over the course of a few weeks, right? Until after a couple of months, you look back and like, wow, I've come so far, right? The same world looks so different to me now, right? So that's the beautiful thing about what we've created, was that we create baby steps so that if anyone has the grit and the desire to walk through the motions, they will be transformed 100%. And at the same time, if they decide not to go through the motions, then they will not be transformed 100%. So it's really about just going step by step. I think that's the thing that we've created for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. So for the last cohort, when it comes specifically to Web3 and crypto, what were your takeaways? As a team, like what were your takeaways?
Well, it was an eye opener for us too, because, and I guess this is the reason why I'm sharing this, is to encourage people who are not from Web3 to join Web3, and also to encourage people in Web3 to sort of reset themselves, right? Because we're going to the new age of Web3. Like what worked before may not work tomorrow, right? So for us, it's a huge learning experience. The first time I ever downloaded a crypto wallet, I mean, and I was like the last one out of all my friends, right? And people actually try to pay me in Bitcoin. Like, no, just give me cash, right? So I was like really resistant to it. So the first time I downloaded a crypto wallet was actually March 15th of this year. Okay, so yeah, okay. So I'm just putting things into perspective, and I was actually quite afraid. My team was quite afraid because we were geared to do a more agnostic program, but what happened was we just said, all right, let's try it, and we didn't know which parts would overlap, which parts would be different, and so what we did was we broke it down. We worked with Trevor. We worked with a few mentors. We broke it down. And okay, these are the things that seem to overlap from a general startup scene and the Web3 startup scene, right? And so, we just went with it. And instead of us creating a lot of content, we just invited mentors who have started Web3 businesses to share their experience. And in the end, we found out that it was about 90% the same. Of course, 10% the Web3 stuff, right? And so during that process, the question was, what do we find out about crypto? We found out that although Bitcoin started in what, 2009, 2010-ish, so it's about it's been over a decade. We've only scratched the tip of the iceberg, right? There's tens of thousands of cryptocurrencies and dApps being built on Ethereum. On Bitcoin, we just activated smart contracts last year, right? And in comparison, there's only a few hundred startups on Bitcoin. So that's like a 100% or 100 times difference. So Bitcoin is just started. Ethereum is way up here. So if I compare it to the US in the days of the Wild Wild West, Ethereum sort of like East Coast is there. It's got its important value, but Bitcoin is like going west. It's like before San Francisco was even discovered as a gold mine, right? And it's a huge land grab right now because you can almost do anything, right? You could do almost anything. So that was like the biggest takeaway. The other takeaway I got is because when I started the pre-accelerator in China, we were hitting like the middle to tail end of Web2. And so by then, all the low-hanging fruit was gone. Right, you had like every single market was crowded, and if you want to innovate something, it has to be like super awesome. But yeah, it was just so much pressure, right? But on Stacks and Bitcoin, the market is so huge, but there's almost no competitors. so you have it as a founder, first of all, you don't need as big of a team. Number two, you don't need as many resources, and number three, there's just like these really elegant, super low hanging fruit that you could create in a month or 2 months, and you could take off, right? And so those are the main takeaways. It was very refreshing. I guess if I had to sum up, it was just refreshing. I was learning all the time, and it's just like you found a new place, and no one's touched it yet, right?
It's like, is this real?
Yeah, is this real? Is this real?
Yeah. I think what you said, it translates in other areas too, where like you said, everything's so new. We're so early. We're kind of like birthing this new thing, kind of taking shape of everything else. Not everything, like we're building it as we go. And I think people haven't truly been able to capitalize on that either. And I love seeing like what you are creating and building in the space, because I think that's going to help so much the individual, and then obviously the community to grow from there as well.
Thank you.
So what would you say are the areas of growth when it comes to crypto?
Oh, wow. This is a huge question. Maybe if we talk about it in the context of Stacks and Bitcoin, it might be easier. Yeah, so there's a lot of things. I mean, I think a lot of people have been watching the news over the last few months, right? We're in a crypto winter, and they're centralized finance. They're saying we'll help you trade crypto products, but we're in charge of all your money. So when this company goes bust, your money disappears with them, right? So I think people are wising up to this. And so one huge thing is on Stacks and Bitcoin is we're unlocking non-custodial solutions. So smart contracts control everything. So even when I have my Bitcoin or other stacks or other currency on this platform, if the founders decide to run away, it doesn't matter. It will default back into my own account, right? So anything that has to do with this kind of application is going to be huge. So it could be a decentralized exchange. It could be loans. It could be derivatives. And actually, each one of those markets can be segmented and then segmented, because if you add them up, it's actually like $1 quadrillion asset class if you add them all up, right? So that's in decentralized finance. Just so many opportunities. We really just scratched the tip of the iceberg. Like I said, it's like 1% there, right? The other is another new asset class that blockchain created is the NFT, right? Is the NFT. And NFTs got a huge boost last year because people found out, wow, you could do art collectibles, but digitized, right? It's just like the physical thing, but it's in digital world, and there can only be one. And so that was a killer app that showed the whole world the potential NFTs. But art is, if you take art out of all the asset classes in the world, it's just a sliver, right? Like think about all the other asset classes, like patents, property, all types of different kind of ownership, right? If you add those up, that's another a few quadrillion dollars, right? And so anything within any kind of application between NFT and some kind of asset class potentially could be the next billion dollar opportunity, right? And then there's a lot of them, right? Because a billion is just 1/millionth of a quadrillion, right? It's just 1/millionth of a quadrillion. Yeah, that's a billion. So the possibilities is almost unfathomable right now.
Yeah, and I think it connects back to the other point that you were making, and I, as somebody that's been in the marketing space, I think that a lot of people come into it saying that we need to create new skills or like new ideas, and actually, the foundation of everything is what's needed. So if you have a good foundation in whether it's like building a business or in marketing, you can build upon that in Web3. It's not like you're starting from zero, because I feel like a lot of the times there's some intimidation that you have to come into the space and like reinvent yourself completely. And it's kind of like, no, you have your foundation and you build up from there. It's like a compound over time.
No, I completely agree with that. And that's what the Startup Lab does, is it helps bridge that, right? Because the trick with I'm just going to talk about startup concept. So the trick with doing a startup is actually just being in the mix, because a lot of times we underestimate the value of a beginner's mind, right? If we look at all the disruption in the world, 99% of the time, it is not some expert in that field that does the disruption, right? For example, let's talk about Bill Gates or Steve Jobs. They were not like the computer titans of that industry. They're like 18, 19, 20-year-olds, right? With hobbies, and they disrupted it. If you fast forward, Yahoo or Google, was Google the head of basically Google's like a massive advertising engine, right? Were they these advertising gurus? They were not. They knew nothing about it, right? And if you look at even when Elon Musk went into the electric vehicle automobile industry, people were laughing at him. People said like, "Who do you think you are? It's already this market is already carved up globally. There's no way you could succeed. Like you know nothing about this. You're doing payment on internet. Why do you think you could do this?" Disrupted it, right? and actually, these are just the famous examples. If you look at if we really look at all the examples, 99% of the time, it's the beginner's mind going to a new industry that disrupts it, right? Right? Because they're not burdened by all the inertia and like after being in a field for 10 years, oh, this is how it must be done, right? And then it becomes like, that's actually the enemy of innovation.
Yeah. It's like, again, you're only coloring within the lines because that's all you can see. There's like, you've set these parameters, like this illusion in a sense, and you can't see beyond that.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Like, innovation is coloring outside of the lines. And as a beginner, we don't know where the lines are. And so it's almost like a piece of art, right? We go into this new environment with a beginner's mind, and then we interpret it in our way from another industry, and then we start creating something, and that's beautiful. And that's where all this disruption comes from, is a cross-pollination, right?
So I guess going back to the crypto, like we're in a bear market, obviously, like you said, the winter. Did you come in during a little bit like the tail end of a bull market, right?
Well, like right at the tail end.
Yeah. And then it just like flopped.
Like not even 60 days and it flopped.
So what's your I guess experience from like that little bit of time that you got to experience the bull market in crypto and then now bear market? Like what's the differences that you've been able to kind of pick up on?
Well, I've been doing research on this for a while. And what I noticed was that Well, I think a lot of people have heard of the Kauffman Association. It's a nonprofit association that is the biggest one in the world. It's basically empowers entrepreneurs globally, and especially in the U.S. And they did a study, and they wanted to find out what percentage of these Fortune 500 companies were created during a bear market. You know what they found is about 2/3, about 66%. Okay, and then you might have heard of some of these companies. If we go back 100 years, like Disney, General Motors, Hilton, IBM. If you want to do something like more recent, right, then you probably heard of Apple and Microsoft, right? We're also created during a recession, right? And we want to, if you want to keep fast forwarding, like for example, maybe in 2008, we've heard of Airbnb and Uber, and those are just like two out of like the many that came out during that time, right? So and it's going to be the same time this time. Why? Because it's actually easier to start up in a bear market. Why? Because it's not like a fad. Like when the market's hot and VC and investors are throwing money around, right? And crypto prices or whatever the prices of that time is skyrocketing, everyone tries to jump in. It's a fashion. But then when it's a bear market, people like all the pretenders are gone. And then so as a founder, you don't have to compete with so many people to do marketing. There's just not as many people doing marketing. So your marketing dollars go a lot further. Also, when there's a bear market, all the salaries go down, right? So your cost of running a business goes down, right? And a lot of the talent that would be sucked up by the big companies or the fast growing companies in a bull market, when those shatter and break apart, they have to find other opportunities. So a lot of talent is on the market for cheap, as well as the big companies. They're like, oh my God, what happened? Like entire divisions are gone, right? And what does that give startups? Opportunities to capture the market. So it's actually much better to start up in a bear market. And that's why Disney, Microsoft, Apple, Airbnb, Uber, the list just goes on and on and on. These companies are all conceived during a bear market.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. And because I think there's like opportunity in kind of like in a space that, yeah, it's just opportunity. Rather, when there's a bull market, like you said, there was just so many players coming in, big companies coming in, celebrities also building things. And it's just like the hype of it all.
Yeah, the hype. It's insane, right? Yeah.
So what are you most bullish on right now with Stacks or whatever? What project, that you like or anything in general?
Oh, wow. I'm bullish on multiple aspects of Stacks because it unlocked smart contracts on top of Bitcoin, right? So potentially utilizing it's like a few $100 billion asset class. And when we hit the next bull run, which is in about 18 months, Bitcoin's having in April of 2024, is going to easily get into the trillions, right? So smart contracts is one of like the big innovations of the blockchain, because it basically automates a lot of stuff, right? It automates a lot of things and can cut out a lot of the inefficiencies in our world. And so, like I said, 1% realized on Bitcoin, right? Ethereum is like 100 times bigger and more developed, but we'll find out that there's a lot of things that were built on Ethereum because there's no option to build it on Bitcoin. But now with the Stacks and Bitcoin, we're going to find out a lot of things are actually more efficiently built on Bitcoin, right? And so there's going to be a lot of exploration in this field, and I'm really excited to see our next cohort and the subsequent cohorts. We're going for
I'm excited too.
300 teams in the next 12 months.
Oh wow.
300, yeah. So
okay, well, I can't wait to see the teams that come up. When is the last day to apply? Or
okay, well, there's technically like never a last day to apply because we always have more cohorts. but for this one, we have, it's November 18th is when we're going to kick it off, and the last day to apply is about November 7th, right? Yeah. And then we're doing something different this time. So the huge takeaway for this time is that before we reviewed almost 700 applications and we took only 25 teams. You were one of the 25 teams, right? And then what happened to the other like 650 people, right? We're going to make sure that no one is left out this time. So yes, we're still going to have our VIP class for the best teams, such as yourself. But the people that just apply this time, we'll allow them to be. We'll give them access to a all entrepreneurs Discord channel where they can find co-founders, and we'll release all the content to them so they can do self-training with each other, right? So the next time we have a recruitment cycle, they may become ready, right, to get the VIP treatment. So
they've done the like pre-work in a sense.
Yeah, they've done a pre-work. So this time we're not going to leave anyone down. Just for applying, we will help you, right?
Yeah, I love this. I'm paying it forward too, getting more people in.
Yes.
So, how do you find balance now? Like, there's so much technology, there's a lot of business, and like the time zones. Like, how do you find balance in your life to keep sane?
Yeah,
I don't.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe I can come back to you on the answer. That's the one thing that I feel like I'm always recalibrating my life, like always rebalancing. Like it's like I guess with growth comes with the responsibility of rebalancing yourself, right? So 6 months before, it was like have to read a lot of stuff, have to talk to a lot of mentors, and just learn from everyone, right? And now that, as I was saying before, now that cornerstone is in place, I find myself having our team learn about new stuff, right? To build another cornerstone. So I feel like I'm always trying to rebalance, right? So I don't know. Maybe don't think about it so much. Maybe it's like, okay, I mean, life happens in chapters, right? Or stages. So whatever stage we're in, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, what is important to us. And then based on what's important to us, what's that one thing we have to do first in order to achieve what's important to us? And just focus on that one thing, because usually it's like 10 things, right? But then out of those 10 things, maybe one is the most important. And the idea is, let me get that out of the way. So then I only have 9 things to worry about, and then get the other one, right? And then just keep on knocking them out until, okay, done, right? But then be mentally prepared that now there's going to be new 10 things to do, right?
Yeah. I think that's so true. I feel like when we're going through a challenge, we're like, okay, after this, everything's going to be okay. And then we're like hit again with life. And it's like, no, it's a constant, it's adulting. Adulting is hard.
Yeah, that's
Nobody
a good
told
way
us
to put
that.
You get hit with life, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So, what's one habit that you do either for business or for yourself that really supports you?
What's one habit that can you rephrase that so I can understand?
Yeah. So what's like one thing that you do, no matter what, like kind of weekly or either daily, that kind of helps you prime for work or even in your own personal life?
Oh, I think for me, it's about trying to be mindful, but at the same time being productive, meaning that it's very easy for me to get like sort of immersed into what I'm doing. And then like, it could be like I forget to eat a meal, or I could be staying up very late, right? Like these things that you just sort of get into it, right? But and that's sort of like we get so busy we become not mindful. So I try to remind myself to recalibrate, even take a breather and just clear my mind, right? Or go for a walk, just something to just break the routine so I can reset myself. Because I notice that the biggest mistakes I make are when I go too long without recalibrating, right? And so I think it's important to recalibrate, even a few times a day.
Yeah, that's powerful. Like you said, either a walk or like a breather, just kind of stepping away from the day to day or what you're doing. Okay, so we're coming to the tail end of our conversation. It's been really incredible. What's maybe like, if somebody, it's a founder or anybody really coming into the space, what's one like advice that you can give them, or one, insight for them? Where can they start in crypto?
I think I don't know if it's advice. I just share what's worked for me. It's never too early to get started, to join a community and to learn the science, because a lot of things is just it's about muscle memory. The sooner we get started, the sooner we'll succeed. But I find a lot of people waste their lives away, procrastinate, or make excuses like, oh, I'm going to work here for another 2 years. I'm going to do this for another year. And they keep putting their dream off. They keep putting off what they're meant to do in this life, right? Don't wait. Just do today. Even if it is like just reading one article about crypto, right? Even if it's like a 5-minute read, or even if it is like, oh, let me call my friend Vinay, or let me call my friend Albert. Hey, what are you guys doing there? Like, what's all the hype about, right? Even if it's like these little things, they compound over time, and they give us a courage to sort of, because it's sort of like testing the water, right? Before you jump in, you're gonna, get acclimated to the temperature, and then you jump in, right? So these little acts of learning about crypto will build up to allow you to go all in, right?
Yeah.
So it's never too early to get started.
Yeah. So the last part is a lightning round. So I ask you a series of questions, and you try to answer them as concise and as fast as possible. Right?
Okay. All right.
Are you ready?
All right.
What's your favorite book?
Oh, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Your go-to drink. Yeah. Your go-to drink.
I was about to say it's been a long time, like a gin and tonic.
Ooh. One thing you can't stand.
And this is, I'm annoyed when I do this myself, but it also annoys me when other people do it. is when they get stuck, right? Or they don't have the courage to just try it. That really scares me and annoys me.
What do you value most right now?
Time.
What's your favorite place on earth?
Home.
Okay. And what do you love most about yourself right now?
That I'm helping people become the best versions of themselves, and that I've stayed true to my vision. The reason why I'm doing this.
Yeah, Albert, it's been such a pleasure chatting and connecting with you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
And thank you for asking all the right questions.
Yeah. So where can people connect with you?
Okay. The best way is, if you want to learn about us, you could go on Twitter at Web3 Startup Lab, or you could go to web3startuplab.io and read about our program. And also you can apply there as well. Yeah.
Great. So I'll share all of your links in the show notes, and I hope you have a lovely rest of the day.
Yeah. Thank you, Vinay. This is awesome. Looking forward to the next time.